Ah, yes, Sister Machine Gun, some classic early 90s industrial cold wave for anyone who knows what the hell that means. They're good guys. I actually interviewed them once after their show for, it was the Torture Technique tour. And I interviewed them for Industrial Nation, I believe. But they were very cool guys. Then I saw them again later at the Glam Slam in Los Angeles, which was Prince's Club, with ChemLab and KMFDM. That was the best show I've ever seen. And KMFDM weren't the best people performing. Actually, ChemLab were considerably better performers. But anyway, it was awesome all the same. So, how is everyone doing tonight, this evening, this afternoon, whatever? I've spent a big chunk of the day working on the print edition of Boobs of Steel. Got a chapter done. And since there's 7 chapters, well, I guess it's 1/7 done. But, that's pretty good pace. Hopefully, I should have the print edition available within 2 weeks. I would like it sooner, but hey, it's just the reality of it. Hey, Draco. So, I had an idea. All right. I had an idea. Now, there are only 11 of you listening. So, this is kind of, I think I probably need to announce this a few more times on other shows as well. But here's the deal. To celebrate the fact that Boobs of Steel is now out the door and people are reading it, 50 copies sold so far, and that's not bad for 3 days. Anyway, we want to do an episode where it's a Nothingcast. I'm probably going to do it on a weekend in which I have Kat go through various pictures and rate the boobs. So if you guys pick your favorite models and send them my way, I will put them into the folder, and it will be for Kat rating the boobs. Can you do that? Let's see. I'm going through the folder right now. In fact, if you send me names, actually links directly to photos. Now, they have to be covered. They cannot have any nipple showing, okay? No nipple showing. And yeah, Kat's going to rate them from a scale from A to F. Now, I figured that will prove very entertaining, especially since I'm probably going to have Kat take a shot or two beforehand, so we can get her to be very brutally honest. Yeah, now just drop, either share a link or give me a name, and I will search some photos. Oh, who's the Asian lady in the thumb? That was an interesting one. I nabbed that because it was just kind of cool. That's from a beauty contest in the 1950s. And let's see, what's her name? Her name is Yai Kobayashi, and she was a 19-year-old living in Minneapolis in 1950, and she was a beauty contest winner. And I just thought it was kind of cool, so I nabbed it. It was in a big pile of old beauty contest photos for sale on eBay, I believe. And this was the preview pic, so I just kind of right clicked and saved. But yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. Yes, 1950 in Minneapolis, no less, a Japanese woman wins a beauty contest, and they say we're all horribly racist in this country. Yeah. Anyway, just breaking the narrative that much more. Hitomi Tanaka. Let's see. Do I have Hitomi already in here? If I don't, oh yeah, she's already included. She's included, but if you have a favorite picture of her, but yeah, Hitomi Tanaka will be in there, as well as Henri Okita will be included as well, since they're pals. But yeah, so have you been enjoying Boobs of Steel? For those of you who waited for the finished book to be released, any comments, any questions? And once you guys are done reading it, Gina Michaels, okay. Yeah, let's see. Again, yeah, the rule is they got to be clothed. So, Anna, Mike, Shibuya, yeah, I kind of guessed. The living Uzaki-chan. All right, put those down. There's a name I don't recognize. Grace Rematch. Yeah, just keep them coming. This will be fun. But yeah, I've spent most of the day working on getting Boobs of Steel in print. Very, very important. I would like it out now, but yeah, I'm only one person, so I can only go so far. And unfortunately, I feel like I am walking a legal minefield because even though I'm well within the rights of fair use, um, we know how fucked up the entertainment industry's gotten. I'm still kind of weighing the pros and cons of including a picture of Ruby Rose as Batwoman. But let's see. Oh, wow. I expected more by now. I wish one of you guys were a lawyer or that, what was his name? The comics lawyer. I wish I knew him, but I don't, because he would be the perfect one to ask. I mean, technically, for comics at least, if it's for journalistic purposes, you can print the cover art or a panel with and that's perfectly fine as long as you credit the artist and make it clear that it belongs to whoever the publishing company is. Oh, Gina Carano, nice choice, my friend. You have a specific phase. Do you want her in her American Gladiator days, her UFC days, or her acting days? Those are very different builds in each phase. Okay, now you're rapid firing the names. Natalia Polikova. Oh, Eastern European. She's probably stacked as all hell. Uh, so let's see. But okay. Oh yeah, well there's a classic. The woman whose boobs were so mighty, Petra was it Vrikik, that her boobs actually saved her in a car accident. That she would have had apparently severe rib damage and possibly died if she had not been so stacked. Strong fat. Okay, so Gina Carano now. Yeah, I got to admit, I prefer off-season uh, women opposed to on-season because they starve themselves. And I don't know, starving. I don't care. It never looks good. I would much prefer a woman with a little extra weight on her than a woman who's starving herself to death. That's my opinion. Oh, Christina Hendricks got us there. Got us to your boobs. Boobs for airbags. Yes. Pam Greer. Velvet Tube. Is that even a real name? Sounds like a pimp name. Velvet Jones. Uh, yeah, it's good to get Iron Pam in there. She is quite an interesting one. You know, the interesting thing about Pam Grier is even though she's considered a black actress, she's so ethnically mixed that she's not really what you would call a typical American black. Um, let's see. Let me. Which is why she has such a unique look to her that she's so ethnically mixed. Let's see. I had forgotten. It was like she's Native American. Here we go. African, Hispanic, Chinese, Filipino, and Cheyenne heritage. That is one hell of a mix. So you guys are still rapid firing these out. Grace Jones, that's an interesting one. As far as I understand, she didn't really have much in the way of tits, although she could pull off the Band-Aid or electrical tape bra. It was on it, of course. Okay. Laurie Marie Massey. Or Laura Marie Massey. Oh, I like that. Linda Carter, definitely. Lucy Lawless actually doesn't have much in the way of boobs, sadly. Dina was mostly special effects. I think she wore 2 Wonder Bras to get that. Uh, so yeah, let's talk about random stuff as you continue to bombard me with names of titties or titties that you want Cat to rate. I take that back. What do I take back? Oh, Melina Velba, another goddess tier set of boobs there. And there's a woman who wears a little bit of extra weight very, very well. And Maserati XXX, that sounds like someone who's got basketball-sized tits from implants. They are moderate, damn you, Kat Denning. Then, you mean then Gabriella? Or is that even a name? Yeah, I had heard Billie Eilish had been hiding her tits, and now everyone's seen them and they went bonkers and are offended or something. What's the deal with that? Do you bring me up? Oh, Lainey Kazan, the face model for Big Barda. We might have to have an S here for titties. I kind of agree. Look up Gabrielle actress. It's just one name. That's a very difficult one to search because let's see. I'll put Gabrielle. You don't mean Monique Gabrielle, do you? Yeah, I've just gotten a big list of Monique or of Gabrielle's here. Or do you mean Renee O'Connor from Xena? Oh, okay. You did mean Renee O'Connor. Sybil Danning. Virginia Hay. No, Kat and I boothed next to Virginia Hay once. She was very cool. Didn't talk to her much, but she was very, very cool. Oh, Boobs of Steel is currently 13 on Amazon for pop culture. Excellent. That means that it jumped up. Last I checked, it was 18. Let's see. Yeah, right now on my screen it says 19. Let me reload. Oh shit! Now it's 10. Well, that makes me happy. Eilish. Oh wait. So Billie Eilish bought fake boobs? Do you mean did she get implants or was she wearing a? Okay, so Billie Eilish with her fake boobs reminds me of Ibishu in Dorohedoro when she had that fake boob dress. So yeah, what's the deal with that? Did she get implants, or was she hiding them and binding them because boobs were apparently offensive? Yeah, I saw that. People were saying she was complaining that people found her tits threatening. I mean, come on. I mean, for the love of all things decent, look, kids, they're tits. Get over it. If you find them that threatening, I mean, maybe the world isn't meant for you. Oh, is the Billie Eilish thing an AI fake? I didn't really follow it, but funny. You're correct on Ines Kedna's name. Who in their right mind would be threatened by a pair of glands? Kat, if you're listening, care to answer that one? Oh, this is going to be fun. Especially we get Kat a little liquored up, so she will let the comments fly fast and furious. But out of curiosity, how many of you have read Boobs of Steel yet? I mean, I realize it's a it's a 200 page book, 209 pages, so I don't expect any of you to finished it. But I have to ask because, well, once you guys do, I need those reviews to come in. That's the next threat. Not next threat. The next step is getting as many reviews in as possible. Marianne from Gilligan. That'll take some searching. Isn't glam the name for the tip of your dick? Well, if it's Dilophosaurus, their poison glands are intimidating. But yeah, seriously, how many of you have been able to actually give Boobs of Steel a look so far, or has it primarily been you guys just supported the cause and you'll read it later? Is it in your to read pile? Uh, yeah. So, in other news, you guys want to, I want physical. You will get the physical. I don't know if you heard, Wolf. I was working today on the print edition, and I hope to have it out in a week or two. That's my aim, if I can work very quickly. I will risk going broke for the physical. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea how much the physical edition will cost, unfortunately. Okay. Regina. Okay. Regia or Reggie. Oh, it's Reggie. Shows how out of it I am. Bennett, huh? Reading as we speak. It has a large number of pages. Yeah, I know. I don't expect any of you to have it done by now, but yeah, as soon as you guys start finishing the book, probably I don't know how long it's going to take to read. Reviews will be much welcomed. Oh God, I'm spaced out. Okay, so yeah, I got the list here. I'll have to track down these tatas and put them in the to rate or boob rating folder. But other than that, you guys want to talk about anything else? Like maybe Budweiser will no longer be carried at Costco, or um, more talk about aliens, like the guy who claimed that he found a piece of an alien spaceship at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, and it was a piece of metal that probably just dripped off of an iron asteroid. And it's kind of getting weird out there in that regard, just the weird claims people are making. Heather Green. Sorry, I have to write these down. All right. Microsoft just bought Activision Blizzard. That could mean good or bad. Microsoft has been fucking everything up lately, like the way they fucked up MS Word and Office. Bud Light had a badass beer can designed for a war veteran as their designed with a war veteran as their mascot. Any member from the OG Baywatch. Wow, you guys are still powering through, giving me more names to go search down. Aliens or beer? This show is always full of surprises. Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as the alien topic's concerned, there was one hell of an interesting chat a few days ago with Tweldy and a few others. I think Mari was in there too on the Discord. That I don't know. So I don't know if we would want to go that in depth again, but that was a really interesting talk because I did the rundown again of my own experiences with the Greys, quote unquote, whether they were in my head or real. That's for you to decide. And I did talk quite a bit to Weldy about the fact that whether it be real or whether it be a product of my mind, it did have all the earmarks of a traditional religious experience. And that just got us going on a very interesting conversation, very, very interesting. And I recently heard something that kind of relates to that, which is kind of funny, which was, I'm trying to remember what conservative host it was, had some guy on who had been a drug addict and had used a lot of DMT and had been talking about how he'd gotten visits from beings of light. And it was just hysterically funny and unintentionally so. Roberta London, yeah, she was like one of those people that just appeared and vanished. Do you know much about aliens in mythology? Yeah, I do actually. Give me a second. Maybe I can't find it. I don't know. Well, I was going to go grab one of my reference books so that I could have all the names on hand immediately, but oh God, you guys are still throwing out names. Christy Wren is like inhumanly beautiful. I mean, she is eerily attractive. It's like one of those people where it's like mathematically somebody just generated all the right features to look sexy. And she's a bit thinner than I usually like, and she isn't nearly as stacked as I usually like, but that woman's just like bizarrely beautiful in a way that only Russians are. You know what I mean? Almost elvish in appearance. Humble Marty, the co-op Communist hate vet. Oh, yeah. So, anyway, mythology. Yeah. For one, I really want to do a book eventually. I don't think I'll ever get the time if I'm ever to get all the books I want done. But I would love to do a book that just uh, digs into the whole connection between the Fae and the lore that we have now regarding aliens, especially gray aliens, because there definitely does seem to be a lot of similarities. Lady Lum, oh, her, oh, a lot of Lum, yeah, Jesus, that's another one of those Russian women that's just like mathematically perfect, and again has that weird elvish look, like they're not supposed to be of this earth. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting connections between the mythology that or the mythos of gray aliens from the 80s and 90s that are very, very similar to Legends of the Fae. Everything from changelings and imposters to the fairies stealing human women to mother their children. And I don't mean give birth to them, but actually mother them because the Fae had kind of lost touch with that ability or they weren't very good at it. Them needing to steal human mothers to birth children because their genetics were running down or their children were born weak and few of them survived. And so that's how they were padding their numbers or trying to solve the problem that they had trouble reproducing. All of that is very similar to gray alien mythos from the 90s. Again, the changeling, the idea that they've replaced somebody, they've taken the original child and replaced it with either a decoy or one of their own. The whole time distortion stuff, crop circles, fairy circles. There's others. There are a number of tales where being taken to fairyland sounds very, very much like what we describe today as an alien abduction. So that in itself is very interesting, and just the idea of the little people in general. And then there's also a lot of the tall whites mythos seems to mirror the fair people, as they were called in the by the Celts. And those stories seem to not just be isolated to the British Isles. I mean, there are parts of all over the world. There were stories of these wafy blondes teaching civilization. So that's kind of curious as well. So there's that. That's an easy one. And I suppose the other real easy one is Ezekiel's wheel, which is very commonly brought up. The Aztecs are another one. But if you wanted, I don't know, if you wanted to say or take a lot of the stuff in the Bible as UFO activity, well, one of the interesting versions for versions of the telling of Moses was the idea that when he went up to the mountain and visited with God, he came back with all the symptoms of radiation poisoning and that it had aged him. Was one of the interesting ones. The voice from above, the blinding light. I mean, is there a specific one you want me to bring up or try and talk about? And it would probably be better if I were to go grab my books, read over them beforehand before answering these questions. But there is a strong argument to be made that this is a phenomena that's been going on our planet for a very long time, and that we're just interpreting it different now that we're in the modern era. Silly Faye. They should pay attention to the parents should have paid the parents off to raise their kids instead of kidnapping them. Some primitive tribes in Africa claim to be from Sirius B. Oh, well, the interesting thing about Africa is they too have the stories of wafy pale blondes coming to their shores with amazing magic. And whereas other civilizations, the stories are all, well, they taught us this, they taught us that. Um, the African version of that story is usually they kill them, and the witch doctors would use their body parts for magic, which is why to this day, it's not really safe to be an albino or really pale in Africa. I mean, apparently, if you're born an albino in Africa, you're not going to live very long, or you're probably going to end up being parted out by a witch doctor. Also, I know that the Africans, the stuff theirs more aligns up with the reptoid stuff. Oh, okay, I remember the Dogon tribe, or the Dogon or Dagon tribe, depending on who's saying it. This is an old one, actually. Although the Dogon lived 2,000 miles from Egypt, they appear to have some intriguing connections with the ancient lineage. But this doesn't really tell me much. Yeah, I could look into this stuff again. I mean, I enjoy researching it. But there does seem to be kind of a yeah, the Irish will be your nanny if you pay them. Well, it is funny that these stories, there are lots of stories about the Fae kidnapping Celtic women for periods of time and saying, having them nurture and breastfeed their kids and mother them because the Fae weren't very good at it or had lost that ability, that sort of instinct. The burning bush was a UFO and the UFO led to Israel. Well, again, I don't mean to insult anybody's religion, but honestly, the burning bush and the column of smoke and fire, I can explain that one for you. It happens to this day. There's a phenomenon in the Middle East because of all the oil deposits that you will get spontaneous combustion of plants and they'll just burn. And apparently, seeing it, it does look very otherworldly. Also, you will get pillars of fire that just shoot up and will sweep across the desert. And in Middle Eastern mythology, it's generally considered that those are jinn or genies, jinnies. But yeah, it's believed that usually when you see the burning bush or a column of smoke, it's a jinn that's doing it, and you should run like hell. Or the interpretation of the Gnostic texts as aliens, such as the demiurge. Yeah. The other one would be is that the Sumerian gods, what's interesting about the Sumerian texts is they're pretty specific that although we called them their gods, they were very clear saying that they weren't gods. They said they were otherworldly, but the Sumerians were very clear in saying that no, they were not gods that visited them and taught them civilization. And that most of their stories back then, that the characters in them that we now call gods really weren't considered, again, outsiders that had come to them that were more advanced. So that one also leads the door. And by the way, a lot of that stuff was later used in a lesser extent to be the Stargate movie. And the whole thing about was it the aliens come to Earth and they enslave the human race and they build jump points across. That's all Sumerian to some degree. It's just taking the Sumerian religion and putting it through a sci-fi lens. Now, in the Sumerian version, the bad guy wasn't named Ra. I don't remember what the bad guy was named, but even though there was the one that really did not like humanity, there was a lot of other similar beings that were very favorable to mankind, and each taught mankind a different skill, like farming or reading the weather and seasons, or another one taught architecture, another one taught perfumes and makeup, believe it or not. One taught language and writing. And in later versions, that story became the one of angels. Red Eyes Radio had this guy called John Lash years ago. He had some interesting cosmology. John Lash, that sounds familiar. Now, again, I reiterate, I don't necessarily believe any of this stuff, except the things that are archaeologically and anthropologically proven as true. The one thing that I do find interesting is there really does seem to be truth behind a progenitor civilization that did spread knowledge. That seems to actually have real truth to it, and it makes modern archaeology very, very upset. And there's been a lot of efforts to shoot that down. Burning bush, word is a hunter's nickname for God. It actually was the precursor of the Nephilim, George. The stories for the Sumerians, it was that these outsiders, these beings that were not of this world, but not gods, visited their civilization and taught them all this stuff, and that they did reproduce with the human women. And in the Sumerian version, they're all good guys, they're heroes. But in the Hebrew version, they were bad guys. It was kind of like in the Hebrew version, they sided with the war god, who was the villainous one, and portrayed the others as the bad guys, the ones that taught civilization. But that was Jesus. That's what, 6,000 years ago. But there is more and more evidence that there were giants in those days. Meant it could have been the Neanderthal, really, because the Neanderthal, we're finding tons of evidence that they came to Europe and Asia, and they did indeed teach us the basics of primitive art, the basics of tribal society, all the precursor to written language. There is apparently the Neanderthal were a lot more advanced than we had any idea. And that, interestingly enough, the Neanderthal women looked just like the men. And what is the story in the Bible but that they found the daughters of man comely? Maybe they were quite fascinated by the fact that the human women didn't look so masculine. It's possible. But that's why there's Neanderthal DNA in European and Asian bloodlines. And just like the stories about the fair people coming and teaching civilization, we don't really know what the Neanderthal looked like. I mean, for all we know, maybe they were very, very pale due to the Ice Age. We do know, though, that when they did come to Africa, they were slaughtered. They did not make it very far into Africa. They were not welcome, and they did not teach anything or interbreed. And that, in fact, there's twice in Europe's history in which the Neanderthal came in, lived among humanity, and it looks like they kind of mixed in and just kind of diffused into the bloodlines. And then a huge chunk of time passed, and another band of Neanderthals came to Europe and again mixed with them. No meat, the crude's wife, damn. That's what it is. There is so much evidence now that they were not killed off, but bred out of existence, that they were already struggling through the Ice Age for various reasons. While they had knowledge, apparently they weren't as adaptable as we were, the human beings. And the other problem is again, their women looked just like the men. And because of that, there's a sizable amount of information that there wasn't a separation of gender roles, or not nearly as much. And we know for a fact that the reason men and women, one of the reasons women evolved the way they did and men evolved the way they did for humans, is because women evolved to look less threatening, with the knowledge that if the predator went for the man and the man fought the predator and died, the woman would still be able to give birth to the children, raise the children, reproduce again. And it's theorized that since the Neanderthal women looked just like the men, predators were picking them off just like they'd pick off the men. So, I guess what the saber-toothed tiger or the wolf, dire wolf or whatever, came into camp looking for some food, they were just as likely to attack the female as the male. So Neanderthal women were like Asian men in maximum security prison. Yes, actually, that's a fair. That's kind of fair, actually. Neanderthals were rice fever right wingers of the Paleolithic. Grug no want, burly, hairly, loud wife. Want small, quiet wife. There's probably some truth to that. There probably definitely is some truth to that. And we do know that feminine features were evolved not only to look less threatening, but to kick off the desire in men to protect them. And they evolved to suggest fertility. And if the Neanderthals saw full breasts and hips as a sign of fertility as well, because we know that their women did grow breasts during pregnancy and did gain hips during pregnancy, they would have the same wiring we do, which is that woman's fertile and would probably find human women attractive. That theory has steam, especially since throughout history, men are the more expendable sex by and large. Yeah, exactly. So like James T. Kirk, prehistoric man, banged anything. Yes, Dawn, absolutely. Actually, yes. Well, I mean, I'll just use an example. It's probably a cultural thing, but we do know for a fact that regardless of what anyone fucking says, okay? Regardless of what anyone fucking says, as far as Caucasians go, and even Asians, Caucasians especially, seem far more open to intermingling genes than most other races. That's just a thing. Throughout history, there's been a tendency of Caucasians intermingling their genes with the other. They just do that. And we do know that regardless of what Japan says, you notice Japanese features actually vary a great deal. Yeah. And the Silk Road, I don't care what anyone says. The Silk Road, traders got into town, they were horny. Okay, it's just that simple. Same thing. How many stories are there of the sea captain going out and coming back with a Chinese wife or a Hawaiian wife or an Aboriginal wife? There are tons of them. And the Brits especially did that. Um, Meanwhile, traditionally, now somebody might correct me if I'm wrong here, but anthropologically speaking, the sub-Saharan Africa was very, very against interbreeding, even with other tribes. So when the pale faces showed up, they were not going to breed with them. And like I said, when the Neanderthals showed up, we know for a fact the sub-Saharans wiped them out and developed witch doctor practices with them. Native Americans are similar to the Neanderthals in that they have been more bred out than genocide. That is true, yeah. But the thing is, the weird thing about Africa is it's extremely genetically diverse, but it doesn't seem to spread out. It's localized in its each patches. It's like each tribe stuck to themselves to some degree. As a Celt, all I know is that pretty brown or black woman lets me push my preferences for dudes aside in favor of desire for some milk chocolate babies. Are you serious? No, I know you're gay, but really, that's curious. But as a Celt, if you look at the Irish, they they're more down for race mixing than even the Brits were. Seriously, you look at the Irish, it was like, are you Catholic? Okay, let's have sex. Or is your religion sort of like Catholicism? Okay, let's have sex. It's amazing. After World War II, the flood of Japanese wives that were brought back to the United States, by and large, it was largely Irish Americans who brought back Japanese wives. Uh, couldn't tell you why. It's just a tendency. Um, I don't know. Maybe Irish are just drunk and horny all the time. I don't know. That's why aliens don't make contact. They want. They know we're going to go after their women. Well, if you believe gray alien mythos, they're here for our women. Wandercock is a real and powerful force. But I honestly think for the sub-Saharan Africans, not interbreeding with outsiders, I would have to say that's cultural. I don't think that's anything genetic. I honestly think that is thoroughly cultural. For the one reason is Black Americans, a lot of them have no issue whatsoever. Like, look at Wolf. His wife is Filipino. Now, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe Wolf will say, no, I'm the rarity. But that's been my experience, at least. Brown woman cast Ungai super effective. Well, actually, what do you mean by brown woman? I mean, the tones of brown. I mean, they're brown Southeast Asians, really. The variation of brown is pretty wide. The vast majority of Black Americans have more than a little Irish in them. Yes, that is absolutely true. It goes all the way back to the days of slavery and indentured servants. Is the gray alien mythos similar to Asgard and Stargate? I don't know enough about Stargate, the TV show, to answer that. Although I always felt that they really should have made them the Asgardians and Stargate Nordics. They really should have done that. And just kept the grays more along the lines of Fae. I wonder how STDs figure into the development and diversification of human beings. Perhaps by providing an evolutionary advantage to in-group mating. Disease has played a major factor. I mean, I know that we always hear the pissing and moaning about the germ warfare genocide that the Caucasians unleashed upon the Native Americans, even though we had no germ theory at the time to even know how things were spread. But the fact of the matter is that the Europeans had so much contact with other people that they were a crossroads for so many different cultures that it wasn't just that they had survived two plagues. They had such hardy immune systems and were just filled with just about every other disease possible and an immunity to it. And the Native Americans didn't. The Native Americans were far more isolated. Their immune systems just weren't ready for it. And just the mere common cold really, really did serious damage to them. Yes, we seek the other women outside of the race, mostly out of love, sure, but to get away from the chicken heads. Maybe the aliens would offer a fair trade, some extraterrestrial hotties in exchange for thousands of millions of human people, research material that our world could do without. Well, if you're going to go by alien mythos, they already have specific bloodlines that they're interested in, and not in the way that reptoid stuff goes. The reptoids, the idea is the reptoids want sociopaths, that they want wealthy sociopaths that are easy to manipulate or even inhabit the bodies of, is the mythos. Whereas with the Greys, the idea is that they have a handful or a certain select number of families and lineages that they're interested in, that they've been following for hundreds of thousands of years. And what's interesting is that the Irish do factor into that. So it's like, well, wait a minute. The Irish have sex with anyone. So that's a huge pool of people. But the idea is that the Greys have toyed with the genetic engineering too much. They lost touch with their I guess what would you say? They've become super ego. They're all in intellect, and they've lost touch with their more human emotions, and are trying to breed that back into themselves, including the ability to mother and nurture children. Reptoids are willing to get in bed with crazy. Cray cray. Now, keep in mind that the other thing is that the Gray, the mythos of the Greys, a lot of it's seen on like the X-Files and shit. A lot of that was cooked up by Air Force intelligence who had hired legit sci-fi writers to come up with this stuff to make it believable. The Irish will fuck anyone. The Welsh will fuck anything. The people of Europe, Asia, and Africa had over time evolved immunities due to so many diseases coming from animals on farms. Bird flu, cowpox. Yeah, that's true. You want a hot Asian woman? But no, it's interesting now that if you look at the places that the gray alien and the reptoid inhabit in our symbolic consciousness, it really does kind of angels and demons. I mean, the reptoids are base manipulators. They're gluttons. They rape. They eat. They drink blood. They eat human flesh. They get off on sadistically destroying people and tearing them down and reducing people to their basest drives. I mean, where usually the narrative in the gray alien thing is that while they're looking to us to regain some of their empathy, they're constantly trying to seed in humanity knowledge to better inhabit the planet more what is it? Not to damage our ecosphere and to live in harmony with one another and to use our skills for technological progression, not for war. That's usually been the narrative. And I think to a degree, these are just symbols in our minds that we've needed forever since the beginning of time. So the personification of hell, yeah, basically. I mean, you look at the reptoid stuff too. You notice they never use any technology. Never. There's never any stories about reptoid technology. It's always them using the host culture and what the whole host culture has developed. What about Brittany Vente? Nah, the whole mythos and narrative that's popped up around aliens in general is curious because it's a mixture of one, real events, two, crazy conspiracy theories and people who were just legitimately schizophrenic and nuts, Hollywood coming up with sci-fi like Spielberg, and then military or Air Force intelligence hiring sci-fi writers to cook up very believable disinformation to scare the hell out of the Soviets. So you've got this very interesting symbiosis of different factors all weaving together. And, you know, to a degree, the Air Force intended it that way so that we don't know which parts of the story are true. I mean, we can read Hynek's reports, and Hynek will give you the very honest, I know this, I don't know this. He's very straightforward about, well, this really happened, but I can't explain it. Where the Air Force intelligence would then seed stories of, oh, well, the aliens need our genetics and stuff like that. Or, you know, the aliens did this or the alien, and it was always to confuse the story and make it harder to understand. And frankly, all this stuff about the government admitting aliens exist, I think is the same thing. The phenomena has always existed, but they're trying to control the narrative. Because I do think it's a force beyond, or a phenomena or force beyond their control, and it scares the hell out of them. Okay. Let's see. Okay, well, Tuwaldi's on, and I'll bring this up. So Tuwaldi talked to me about the fact that my experiences, my lucid dreams, and my experiences with the Greys, and how it did mirror a religious experience 100%. I mean, and it was basically what got me through post-traumatic stress. And it was a big part of getting through the post-traumatic stress. And it was a wholly terrifying yet positive experience. That's the thing. It was thoroughly terrifying. But in the end, I got better. And I can't knock that. Tuwaldi argues that that was the form the angels took to help me through. And, you know, honestly, if he's correct, that sounds wonderful. I would love to think that there are angels protecting us. Do I think so? No, sorry, but I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I'm more than man enough to admit I absolutely hope I'm wrong. I would love to think that higher beings are looking out for us, and higher beings said, you know what, we'll push you in the right direction to crawl out of this pit of post-traumatic stress that you were in, because the moment I did, I got published. You know. Anyway, there was this guy that had done a shit ton of DMT and was a heroin addict. And was it the Michael Regan show that he was on? I forget who. But this guy was talking about how he kept taking DMT because he was having spiritual experiences, and he thought that it was enlightening him. And he was saying that these beings of light kept visiting him, and when they were around him, it was disturbing and frightening, but at the same time, they were giving him information that he thought was helping him. And then he says, yeah, like for instance, I remember once the beings of light came to me and they said, look over there. And I looked to my bathroom and I saw paramedics dragging my dead body out. And they said, if you keep on taking heroin, that's going to be you. And he goes, but you know what? I didn't get any better. That's how I know they were demons, because if they were really angels, I would have gotten better after that. But I kept doing the heroin. I didn't stop doing heroin until I went to prison. It's like, you see the flaw in your equation here, right? That either that was something in your subconscious or something telling you, look, heroin's going to kill you, and you were expecting them to do it for you. The Hierophant is what they call that, a physical interlude that leads to an epiphany or some other development. Interesting. South Park, remember that South Park episode with Andrea Pan pipe bands holding back the kaiju guinea pigs? That was great. Andean. Yeah, I remember that. That is nearly as funny as the Hay Club for men, one with the bunny pope as the apostate successor from the St. Peter. But I've got a different story for you. Okay. And this is why I say it doesn't really matter if it's real or not. Okay. Is it in our mind or is it God? For those of you who believe in miracle, it is, I guess. The miracle aspect is important. But for me, who just doesn't have that capability, this is why I say it doesn't really matter if it's God or if it's your brain. I knew a guy who was a speed addict. And this is back when meth was far less dangerous than it is now. And he was very deep into speed. And he said that there was this period in which he stayed awake for 2 weeks straight, and he was just wandering the city and did not sleep. And he was just wandering. And he'd go into these fugues, and he didn't remember much. And after 2 weeks, he's walking down Main Street in Riverside, California, if anybody of you know where that is. And it was like 6 a.m, according to him. And the sun's just coming up and it's crusting over the mountains and it's blaring down on him. And he's looking into the light and he hears a voice and he goes, son. And he looks up and he's like, huh? Son, are you okay? And he looks up at the sky and says, God, you're talking. Why did you wait till now? I've been wanting to hear your voice forever. Why, God? Why did you wait till now to talk to me? And then he feels a hand on his shoulder, and it's a police officer, and he turns around and says, son, you need some help. And the cop took him to rehab, and he still found Jesus after that and stopped using speed. So, if you want to view that as a miracle of, well, God talked through that cop and put this guy on the right path in a kame sort of way, yeah, that absolutely would fit as God. I don't know if it would. Wait a minute. I guess in Christianity that would count too. But, either that's a human action or it's not. It doesn't matter. At the end, it put him on the right path. I mean, it got him off drugs. It got him. Let me tell you, when he got off drugs, holy shit, did he look a lot healthier and a lot happier. But I mean, it's a hysterical story. I can't do it justice. He did it better. But apparently he just kind of dropped to his knees and was crying, looking to the sky, saying, God, why hadn't you talked to me before? And then he looks over and it's a cop. And he did get charged, but no, the cop got him into rehab. The story reminds me of the guy praying to win the lottery joke. Okay. Wow, suddenly the comments sort of dried up. Everyone's saying yo. Okay, I'll yo. Why the hell not? The biggest miracle was him ending up in rehab rather than prison. Okay, well, I'll tell you why he didn't end up in prison. Because he was 16. That's why. And back then, they were more likely to, if you hadn't done a violent crime, they were more likely to put you in rehab. And the truth was, it was the right thing for him. I mean, he didn't do anything violent. The only person he was hurting was himself. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he was just another suicidal Gen Xer who had been neglected by his parents. And maybe just the simple act of someone showing they fucking gave a damn was enough. I just boxed. My finger hurts. Typing is non grata for me at the moment. You know, that's kind of weird is the thing about junkies, because I knew a fair share of the music industry, and just growing up in the 90s, there was an abundance of drugs, and people, and a lot of young people looking for a way to escape. The interesting thing about drug use, and keep in mind, I was not a user. I smoked pot twice, did LSD once. That was it for me. The thing about junkies that was always fascinating was how much ritual was involved with them doing it. It wasn't enough just to do the drug. They had to have their place they did it in, and they went through their little, dance of, oh, I do it this way with this pipe, there was kind of a ritual to it. And depending on how deep in they were, they would talk about it religiously, which was kind of disturbing, especially heroin users. And I always found that the most disturbing was heroin users would talk about heroin like was like religion, like a religious experience, that going to the land of Nod made everything better, and that they were willing to wreck their bodies for it and wreck their lives for it. And one of them told me, well, the thing is, heroin, I can have lost everything and be in the gutter and everything's okay. And the other thing that somebody who had gotten off heroin had once told me was, the thing that heroin gave him that church didn't was that at church he could lie to the priest at confession. He could worm his way out. He could lie. He could feign being pious. He could go through the motions and not mean it. Whereas the transaction with heroin was, he would do something bad to get momentary relief, but he would also have to pay penance whether he liked it or not in the come down. And that was the appeal to him, which is very sick, but I don't know. I think it takes a special kind of damage or something lacking in your life when that's what fills the void for you. Heck, in the Bible, it shows God using talking animals, angel choirs, and even voices from the sky. Man to man seems to be the thing that got through to people. Yeah. A lot of cultures still use drugs in weird religious rituals. The real problem we're having is not a cry for help. About the real problems we're having. Yeah. I don't know. I don't, I honestly don't know the age demographic of the listeners. I really don't. I mean, sometimes I'm shocked how young some of you are. And with the millennials, I will admit that a lot of it was, you guys were over sheltered. And in the past, dealing with the millennials, it's like, you just don't know anything. You haven't really experienced the world. What the hell are you talking about? And this weird idea that thanks to college, a lot of these millennials have this notion that, oh, I know everything. I'm smart. I got a piece of paper that said so. Whereas on the flip side of the coin, what I'm finding now that Gen Z is coming up, I worry about you guys. I mean, the minefield you were walking through in day-to-day life, all the shit that's being dumped on you, all the brainwashing, all the weird stuff about, your identity, question your identity. You have to, all the weird watchwords and things you have to do. And it's not like in the past where, okay, there were social pressures. No, now you've got teachers dumping this shit on you. You've got cops dumping this shit on you. If you were poor, drinking rotten barley and water for beer, hungry and crapping on the street, and going to a scented room full of song, honey, and eternal life sounds pretty damn good. Yeah. I mean, the fact is, all these teachers that fly rainbow flags in class, the fact that you can get kicked out of school or even have the cops called on you for uh, complaining about the rainbow flag in class is just insane. I mean, really, that is fucking insane. I mean, when I was in school, acting out, we did some really questionable things acting out, but simply mouthing off to the teacher wasn't going to get the cops called on you. That, and I think, with I don't know, just the whole environment you guys are being brought up in just seems like a fucking nightmare. And I can't even fathom it. I mean, Gen X was neglected, and we were told we all sucked and that we were all going to die before we were 30. And it was made very clear that we were unwanted. That sucked. And there was a lot of depression, but we were left the fuck alone at least. For those of us that were strong enough to find our own tribe and make our way, we still could. But, it seems almost like Gen Z has to deal with kind of the gay secret police trying to force shit on them. I wish people could stop proving books written by people like Ayn Rand are correct. That would be nice. Not sure why all these morons thought that these were instruction manuals. Well, what do you mean by proving Ayn Rand was correct? You mean about her and the talking about takers? The thing is, a lot of people read Atlas Shrugged without understanding the full breadth of her philosophy. If you read her philosophical writings, it's a lot clearer than Atlas Shrugged. And the whole thing was not just, oh, be selfish and all about yourself. There are two major flaws to Rand's theories, because she got a lot right. But the two major flaws is, one, she assumed mankind was a rational being and that you could if you could talk rationally to people, you could get through them. The second thing is all of her theories required a moral society, and she thought reason was strong enough to be that moral force. And I mean, it's laudable, but it's not true. I would say maybe for people like Buddy Lord, myself, maybe a lot of my listeners, reason is enough to get you through, as far as, well, this is right and this is wrong, as long as you have an undercurrent of what Western values based on Christianity. But I think for the average human being, they need some sort of moral absolute that is tangible. That it isn't enough to say, well, look, this process has worked for thousands of years and produced the best society ever. Clearly, this is the right path. Let's be nice to each other. Let's stick to these moral values that came about in the 1800s. But anyway, 2000 to present, parents and sex confusing. Well, I am glad to see parents speaking up. It makes me proud to see more and more parents going and fathers going to these school, what is it, parent teacher meetings, the PTA meetings, and speaking up and pushing back. And all these parents pulling their kids out of school and saying, no, you leave my kids the fuck alone. Oh, buddy Lord, no, I meant how we would be proselytizing over and protecting the weak and immaterial, valuing the virtue and perceiving righteousness over the productive and efficient. Yeah, I see. How you doing, Janelle? What's going on? I'm just rambling. I've spent the day laying out the first chapter of Boobs of Steel for print, and I just thought I'd wind down by rambling to the audience some. How are you? You're one of those parents that isn't taking any shit, and I applaud you. It makes me quite proud that you don't take any shit. You know what? Let's put this on screen because I feel like it. Oh, come on. Where the hell is there? It is. Boobs of Steel, available now. Go to your. Okay, let's see. Where are we at? So I'm number 13 in pop culture and number 10 in pop culture graphic design. Not bad. And 33 in pop culture overall. Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, I've been asking people if any of them have read bits and pieces of read any of Boobs of Steel yet. Haven't gotten any feedback, but you're great. You're washing dishes right now. Yeah, I mean, Steven, you do your best, and you're doing damn good. But anyway, how's my favorite werewolf? Let's see, what else can I talk about? So, Janelle, what we're going to be doing, Kat and I, this weekend is to celebrate Boobs of Steel. We're going to do we're going to do Rate Those Tits. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple glasses of whiskey or a couple shots of whiskey into Kat, and then we're going to go online and the users have all made suggestions of whose boobs we need to rate, and Kat's going to rate boobs as we look at them. And it should be amusing because she'll be drunk. Interesting. So currently it says I've moved 50 copies of Boobs of Steel. So that's pretty good for 3 days. How am I feeling? Frazzled. Honestly, still recovering from the nonstop marathon of getting the print or getting the Kindle edition of Boobs of Steel available. I had sent that deadline for myself, and I was going to get it done. And the thing is it was very important to me that 7th chapter get included. So, I mean, I marathoned to get that last chapter done. And huge thanks to Ironcast Knight for editing. I mean, that is another reason that I was able to get this done is he edited, and he was above and beyond the call of ass kicking. Actually, if you don't mind, Ironcast and Janelle, since you've both read it already for the most part, I know you haven't read all of it, Janelle, but Ironcast has. If you can post reviews, that would be great. Unfortunately, I was unable to get preview copies out to anyone because I was writing it up to the last minute, so it doesn't have any reviews right now. Okay. Geez, Ishi, don't make it sound like you're drinking, force drinking her. Oh, I don't have to force her. I don't have to force her at all. She likes whiskey. All that Irish and German blood coming out. But yeah, and It looks like JC is going to be starting on the cover art for the second Boobs of Steel book. Riddle of Steel is what it'll be called, which one of you suggested. I don't remember who, but thank you for the title suggestion. And I will open the book with a breakdown of all the reasons why modern female characters suck donkey. And it should be enjoyable. One thing I've really tried to do through this is not have it read like a textbook. I tried my damnedest to make the writing funny, entertaining, witty, snarky a bit, and make it feel like I was talking to you and kind of walking you through this. Oh, what's Jack Daniels? Cat's whiskey of choice is a bottle of Jack. And I think she likes, oh God, Nipple of Steel. Kat, are you listening? If you're listening, Kat, tell us which one, because it's one of the spiced flavors you like. Although she wants to try wild turkey. Let's see. I know there's other shit I'm trying to remember, but like I said, my head's kind of frazzled. Oh, I know what I did. I spent the morning writing a review of Raltz's first book, Behold Humanity, May We Come In, for Upstream Reviews. The review is not done, but as soon as it is, I will send it. And I just finished Raltz's interview. I interviewed Raltz, as some of you may recall, and that'll be sent off to Bleeding Cool soon as Raltz gives me the okay. I sent it to him. Oh, there we go. Kat said Cinnamon Jack is the one she likes best. Can you have Richard write a book? You know, that's actually not a bad idea to have Richard Steele comment on it. Richard Steele. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it because book 2. Yeah, hold on, give me a second. Well, now that book 1 has walked the reader through a gigantic history lesson of the Boobs of Steel trope and Amazons and why these characters are important, and subtly giving you a lesson in Jungian archetypes without you realizing it, hopefully. After I've done that, now I can dive into the real culture war stuff and some of the deep takes or deep cuts. And that will be a lot of fun. I'm going to do a whole thing on jungle goddesses or jungle queens, which will be a hell of a lot of fun. I will do a write-up on Valkyries. And I've got one called The Heroine's Journey, but it's actually not about heroine's journey. It's about female characters who take the hero's journey. And one of my contentions is that you need these Boobs of Steel characters typically to effectively have a character, female, go through the hero's journey. That if you have a masculine or mannish female do the hero's journey, it doesn't work. The mind just reads it as, oh, this is a dude with a vagina doing it. So you need a Boobs of Steel character typically to go on the hero's journey because she is an embodiment of the feminine. And I use a lot of different examples. And I talk about, for instance, Battle Angel Alita as a perfect example, the film at least, of a female going through the hero's journey. And I point out that in the film, they do use her growth of her breasts as an indicator of maturity and strength as she gets into the new body. It's basically she's growing up and becoming a woman. And I even talk about how a lot of reviewers shit bricks over it, how they just despised Alita for that reason. I'm I get into, after that, the failure of the modern heroine, and I tackle Ray Palpatine as to why Ray Palpatine and Captain Plank, as Fiona calls her, Brie Larson, are just terrible, terrible characters, and why they utterly fail when you try to put them in the role of hero. Actually, come to think of it, I've got a large segment where Fiona talks at length about specifically why characters like Ray Palpatine and Captain Marvel are utter failures in that chapter. That chapter is a lot of fun because you get to hear Fiona get really, really just, she doesn't hold back. You know her, Fiona. She does not pull punches. Let's see. Is there anything else? Yeah, book 3 is probably going to tackle specifically video games and animation. I'll cover all the uglifying of video game characters and animated characters. I'll get into the whole She-Ra controversy and how it was basically propaganda to get kids to question their gender. I will talk about what they did to Lara Croft. And I will probably entitle that one Fear of the Feminine, because that is the final chapter for the third book, is entitled Fear of the Feminine. And it's all about how the modern left doesn't just hate femininity, they're afraid of it. They clearly are afraid of it because they know traditional femininity has a power they can't fucking control. And that is, one, life giver. The feminine nurtures children. The feminine mothers. The feminine is the second component to the family. And she is usually the one who is the head she is the one at the home. And the one thing that the left wants to do away with is mothers and the idea that you raise your children. They want a bunch of drones that, and they always need the masculine. The left will always need the masculine because they'll need somebody to hate. They'll still need their Satan to blame. They fear the pure, the good, pure, and beautiful. Damn straight, Larry. Exactly. That'd be called, oh God, no futa. No futa. Futa bad. No futa allowed here. No bonus hole shit either. I don't know if that's good news because James Cameron's lost his shit and lost his way. The only reason Alita turned out as good as it was is because he really didn't have much involvement in it. It was a script he wrote in the 90s in his prime. This is back, Terminator 2, James Cameron wrote that script. And then he handed it over to Robert Rodriguez, who made it coherent and brought a human element to it. Done. I don't think Cameron will make a good follow-up to Alita, honestly. And I hope it gets stuck in production hell or Cameron drops dead, because Cameron's gone bye-bye. He's cucked out so hard. Bonus hole sounds like a sex act. Okay, going through here. I really enjoy studying the Jungian archetypes. Well, you're going to really dig Boobs of Steel if you've gotten through. The Amazonian 80s is a history lesson into the 80s and how that was the decade in which the Boobs of Steel trope really took off. But while I go through it, it's really a lesson in archetypes. And you learn a lot about archetypes when you're going through that. You get some of that too in the second chapter, or the chapter about Japan and anime. There's a bit of the archetypes in there as well. But then there's a chapter which you probably know called the Amazonian archetype. And I just get down to it and explain what it is that makes an Amazon, what the archetype is, and why. And I think one of the things that, or not think, I know, one of the problems right now with the left and the characters they're creating is they want to be able to do anything and call it a hero. It's basically, I want to throw these labels into a character and have her just go do anything I want, and she's a hero or a heroine. It doesn't work that way. For an archetype, for a heroic archetype to work, you need specific events and traits, and you can't break from that. They have to be there. It's just like I used the example of the pasta dinner. You can't boil water and then just throw whatever the hell you like in there and expect to get a nice pasta dinner. You need specific ingredients, and you have to cook it for a specific amount of time and prepare it a certain way. An archetype is the exact same way. You need specific ingredients and specific processes to happen for that character to be a hero. So you just can't throw in a bunch of labels and political ideologies and say, that's heroic. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, and that's why they keep producing these fucking psychopaths. Okay. Raltz just got back to me, so I got distracted there for a second. Oh, Janelle, I didn't know he wrote it in the 90s. Yeah, he wrote it in around 92. So, or maybe it was at 93, I forget. But he wrote it around the time he did Terminator 2. So it was at his prime before he totally cucked out and sucked. I mean, he is such a little bitch now. Toxic masculinity. Going through your comments. Their idea of heroism is just to discuss it and not perform. I would even go further than that. I would say their idea of heroism is, I've always been great. You don't recognize I'm great. Everything I do is great. And if you disagree with me, you're a Nazi and need to die. They have no concept of what a hero is. And the thing is, heroes have to have selflessness, empathy. They have to actually give a damn about other people. But more importantly, every hero needs a moral center, a moral compass. Leftists hate morals. They hate moral centers. They despise the concept of a moral compass. It's whatever they feel like at the fucking moment. And that's why they can't write heroes, because they are amoral, sociopathic pieces of shit that are just tumbling their way towards becoming complete evil sociopaths, capable of doing the most vile deeds. And that is why right now you can look in movie reviews, and Hollywood's complaining about a movie that's against child trafficking. Yes, a movie about child sex trafficking. They don't like it. Anyone with even an ounce of morality would say, wait a minute, maybe I don't agree with how they're approaching it, but it's coming from a good place. Or look at it and say, but it's a real cause that we should be concerned about. No, it's QAnon, it's conspiracies, it's anti-Semitic, it's anti-trans. It's like, that's your complaints? Prove it. How is it? Explain to me how it's anti-trans. I'd love to hear this, because the only way it can be anti-trans is if the trans movement are a bunch of groomers. And frankly, I don't get the anti-Semitic one. I don't even know. I kind of do, but the leap in logic is so fucking bizarre that it's like, get over it. Bullshit. All the villains in that film are apparently south of the border. They're about Colombians. The Colombian drug lords are the big villains. Finally figured out how to describe what Corkhorn is. Really? Cool. The Adventure of Corkhorn became a comic prose combo that started as 50-50 and became 12 chapters with 2 pages comic intro. That's cool. Yes, I agree. He turned to the dark side after Titanic. Absolutely. And Linda Hamilton left him. For those of you who read Boobs of Steel, you'll get the answer in the chapter, The Amazonian 80s. Because I do a whole section, good 3 or 4 pages, on James Cameron and his his heroines. And by the end of it, it becomes very clear that what's wrong with Cameron is he's got mommy issues big time. Yep, you're right. They're all these postmodern writers are all basically creating characters that are superpowered Eric Cartmans. These assholes even hated Sicario because it had the audacity to show Mexicans as in a bad light. Jeez. You know, most Mexicans don't like the cartels either. So, I mean, heroine in woke comic Ishii. The heroine in woke comics today is Harley Quinn, and worst female characters hate Dick. Well, you know what? It's good you bring that up, Bjorn, because will it be in book 2 or will it be book 3? Sorry for the pause. I believe it'll be book 3. Book 3 has an entire section on Harley Quinn and what's wrong with her. Give me a second. Yeah, I do an entire thing about what's wrong with Harley Quinn, and I break it down very, very clearly. And when you read about it, it's kind of creepy. Oh, has Straight Pride come back? Super Straight? Even Conservative said sorry? Said sorry about what? I'm going through your comments. Yeah, I wish I could just publish these all now, because what it is I'll write book 2 for Boobs of Steel, and there's a few chapters, so it's going to take a little bit longer, probably a couple months. But book 3 is pretty much done. So it'll be like book 2 will come out, and then book 3 will probably be available the next month after that. And book 3 is going to be the really interesting one, because that is when it gets into the culture war 100 fucking percent. We get into comics and Power Girl. We get into what they did to Lara Croft. We get into the whole reducing of bust size and the whole war against Barbie. Get into She-Ra and the propaganda for the trans movement. I break down how the sci-fi community, the SFWA, SIFWA, is full of pedophiles and always has been, and what they've done to sci-fi. Then I get into an entire chapter on communism and saying, look, it all comes back to communism. Seriously, that is the last chapter in the book. It's all fucking communism. At the end of the day, it starts with communism. It went from communism to postmodernism to feminism to the trans movement. And hopefully by the 3rd book, we'll have enough people jumping on board reading these that we can make a real difference and wake a lot of people up to the fact that just how fucking damaging communism has been to culture. Oh, your power went out, Trenton? Ugh. Well, I look forward to hearing what you think, and I look forward to your review. Your reviews are always very interesting to read. Feedback from you is always good, too. We need to get you down here so you can review David J. West's book. Okay, there's a straight pride shirt. Let me see. Okay. I find a lot of these, actually. Let's see. Is this what you mean? Is this the shirt they're getting pissed off about? Or is it this one? Because I could see that one really pissing them off. I'm kind of digging these. There are a whole bunch of them. Give me a second. I found another good one. I'll tell you why people find this offensive. Because it points out everything that's wrong with them. That's why. It's because they aren't about equality. They aren't about living in harmony. They want to be stomping on everyone else. Anyone who has a problem with this shirt very clearly wants to be the oppressor. That's it. It's that simple. Same thing with the reason people or white people aren't supposed to be proud of their heritage. Same thing. David J. West is a really good guy. I like him. The only theater that has the balls to air in my area was a movie theater in the hood. Says a lot. That's amazing. Oh wait, straight pride. It's because the same kind of shirt Pride Parade uses. I mean, okay. Ishi, true communist ideology in the mid-60s to present destroyed black families, chasing out fathers, replacing dad with dad government. Yeah. One of the most disgusting things I've heard is when you see these videos from black women talking about not needing a man. I don't need no man. I got the government. Government give me this. Government give me this. It's like, yeah, there we go. That's everything wrong. But you know what? It's easy to say communism did it, but I'm going to be fucking honest. They didn't have to fall for it. And I hate to be brutal. I really do. But on some level, the black community needs to, if they're ever going to get out of that mess, and I don't think they will, the black community needs to come to terms with the fact that they were very willing to buy into that con job, that they were very willing to kneel down in front of daddy government and take his money. That they were very happy to be put on that leash because other ethnicities, other cultures saw it for what it was, a fucking leash. You didn't want to be on welfare. And I think that's part of the thing that the black community needs to solve is why would you be so willing to go on the government's leash? Why? That should be like something you want to avoid, like the plague. I mean, it's not as prevalent, but to this day in white culture, welfare mom is not something you want to admit you are. A woman does not want to admit she's on welfare. Nobody wants to admit they're on welfare because it's embarrassing. I think Hollywood was stunned and scared when Sound of Freedom did so well on half the screens that Indiana Jones and the Dead on Delivery was. Yeah. Martin Luther King is part of the problem. He was a fucking communist. And you know what else? He was all about Gibbs. He really was. You read what he wanted, and he wanted black families to be forcibly put into white neighborhoods, into homes they couldn't afford, and the government to pay for it, and basically force middle class white and working class white communities to accept an influx of black people who didn't actually have the money or work ethic yet to be in that neighborhood, which is like, you're just asking for trouble right there. That's just asking for conflict. Okay. Indeed, Bjorn, codependency and complacency, the downfall of any community. Yeah. Soldier of Freedom. No, Sound of Freedom is a financial threat to the big studios, which have a lot of pull with distributors and theater chains. Yeah, and you know what? It's just going to keep hurting them. And the more they do to stop this film, the more people are going to want to see it. And if they keep getting in the way of distribution, the fact that there is a market, the fact that that film is doing so well, if Hollywood pulls enough strings and gets its distribution cut, other methods of distribution will have to form, and the money's there. That's the thing now. It's proven. Sound of Freedom has an audience. People will pay money for this, which means people outside Hollywood are willing to invest in an alternate distribution method to get the film out. It's too late. Hollywood's already screwed up. I agree. It should feature super straight colors. Malcolm X was on point calling Dr. King Uncle Tom. Malcolm X, for all his flaws, was really the much better black activist. And really, I think we'd be in a different place if he had been the one to win out versus Martin Luther King. I mean, part of the thing is Martin Luther King was a mouthpiece. Most of what he wrote and said was written by 3 college professors who were white, I believe. And they were all like commie leftists. Malcolm X was self-made. Malcolm X went through his own journey, found out for himself. And the guy had balls enough to come back to the Nation of Islam and say, we're wrong. I was wrong. And that was what got him killed. And for all his flaws, Malcolm X was right. He came forward and said, you know what? We've got to stop paying attention to what white people do. We got to start taking care of our own shit. We got to get our own house in order before we start looking at white people. That would have changed everything. Instead, he got a shotgun to the face. You have the same birthday as King or as Malcolm X. All right. What was he wrong about? What was Malcolm X wrong about? Well, I think in time he probably would have gotten over it. But at the time of his death, he was still a bit of a racist. I mean, I guess everyone's a racist, so it isn't that big of a deal. But he definitely took issue with white people. He definitely had a separatist point of view. And I think in the long term, that's not sustainable in the United States. I mean, unless you're willing to do what the Mormons did and go to Utah, he would need to come to terms with the fact that the black community would need to live alongside the white community, and that they would need to put aside their hate and anger at the white community. And that was, I think, his big flaw. The other one, yeah, he was a Muslim. And I don't know what breed of Islam he was after he left the Nation of Islam. But Islam usually has a lot of problems, a lot of problems. But who knows? If he had lived, maybe he would have seen through that too. I mean, he was a very smart guy. He was a smart guy, and he was man enough to say, wait a minute, I was wrong. I'm going to course correct. That's pretty fucking rare for anybody, especially a public figure who has gone around preaching a certain ideology. Yeah, Islam also, I'm just going to flat out say it, Islam's inherently violent. I mean, it's inherently violent, and its idea of peace is terrifying. Tell us about how the Black Panthers became the Crips and Bloods. I don't know much about that, Wolf. I just know that as the Black Panthers disintegrated after their leadership was arrested, they just turned into street gangs dealing drugs. But the fact of the matter is the Black Panthers were always a street gang. This whole bullshit that somehow the Black Panthers were actually a revolutionary movement. No. They were, from the start, they were con artists. From the start, they were dealing drugs. From the start, they were using the hippies as quick cash and pussy, and said as much. Their whole thing about communism, they were promoting it strictly because they can sell, because they were selling Mao's Little Bread book at an exorbitantly stupid overpriced, and hippies would pay for it. That's it. So politically speaking, they were always pretty much thugs. Isn't the Nation of Islam's version of Islam? Yeah, it's Scientology. Nation of Islam is essentially Scientology for black people. It's insane shit, and it's that weird. Okay, guys, I'm kind of getting hungry, so I'm going to go have dinner. Kat's going to get off work very soon, so... All right, well, buy Boobs of Steel. As soon as you read it, please leave a review. And in the words of Raltz, don't step on any dicks.